Hi everybody, my name is Rachel and I am one of the Youth Services librarians here at the Grandview Heights Public Library. And today I'm going to give you some book recommendations for ages birth through about grade 3. So I'm going to start with a board book series that I really enjoy, and this series is called Alpha Prince. And this is a really fun series for your very littlest readers. And what's great about this series is that the illustrations are textured in this kind of fun fingerprint way, so that it's fun for little ones to interact with, but it doesn't have a lot of those, flaps or slides or things that little ones love, but also are really easily damaged. So those are some pros for babies. They're also fun for toddlers because the illustrations are made from pictures of different real-world objects. So you can see that right here, the unicorn, its horn is actually an ice cream cone. And later on, this genie here has a bowl for a hat and a pot that is part of a shell. So you can go through each of those pages with your little ones and have fun pointing out those different objects that you can recognize. The text is really spare and simple, and there's a huge library of these books that span from, ABC to counting to colors and all that stuff to, magical creatures and dinosaurs, sea life, jungle. So Alpha Prince, really fun, cute board book series. All right, the next one I want to talk to you about is called Here We Are, Notes for Living on Planet Earth by Oliver Jeffers. And Oliver Jeffers is one of my favorite picture book authors, so if you haven't checked him out, please do. You can't go wrong with anything that he writes. But this book is one of my particular favorites, and it's written kind of as a letter to his new baby, but I personally think it's great for toddlers on up. It's like basically like a primer for living on the planet Earth. And so it has some fun stuff about the planet Earth itself, such as it's made up of 2 parts, land, rock and dirt, sea, water, and it's got a lot of good humor in it too. And then it also has some stuff about our bodies, such as, the most important thing for people to remember is to eat, drink, and stay warm to survive. So it's got some of that basic stuff, but then it goes on to talk about people and how they come in many different shapes, sizes, and colors. But don't be fooled, because we are all people. So everything about this book is fantastic. The humor, the message, the illustrations. Highly recommend Here We Are or anything by author Oliver Jeffers. All right, next I want to talk to you about Double Take, A New Look at Opposites by Susan Hood. So opposite books are like a dime a dozen, and they're usually pretty straightforward. You might have this double page spread that has like a little mouse on one side and a big elephant on the other side that says little and big, and then it'll go on with slow and fast, short and tall, and that's pretty much it. And those books definitely have a place in the collection for young kids who are just learning those opposites for the first time. But I really like this book in particular because it moves on from just those basic opposites and talks about how our perception of things as big and small and short and tall can be different based on our point of view. So for instance, on this page right here that I want to show you, it says that who is ahead and who is behind is different from everyone standing in line. So that kind of introduces kids to some of these more subtle, abstract concepts. So this guy is obviously ahead of this little boy, but this little girl is ahead of this guy. So it's a great book to talk through with your little ones, and it's very cute and very well done. Double Take, A New Look at Opposites. All right, next I have another author I really like, who is Britta Tegentrump, and this is called Bee. And this is actually part of a series of some really cool picture books that are all nature-based. There's bee, tree, moon, and ocean. And so how these work is you have this kind of cutout here, and the cutouts change as you open the book and turn the pages. So you see bee, and as this bee goes from flower to flower, harvesting pollen, and it changes. And eventually she flies back to the hive and brings back, all this pollen. And then at the end, you get to see this whole, beautiful field of flowers that bee has brought to life from all of her hard work. Similarly, moon shows, the moon from a tiny sliver to becoming the full moon. So it's kind of just a fun and interesting way to learn about nature, and the illustrations are very cool. So I would recommend any books from that series by Britta Tekken-Trump. They're called A Peek Through Picture Book. All right. Next, I want to talk to you about Jory John, who I think is one of the funniest picture book authors out there right now. And he has this series of books that is based on expressions that we all know and use that are based around food, and he kind of brings them to life. So there's the bad seed, there's the good egg, there is the couch potato, and there is the cool bean. And I think he's going to plan on keeping going for as long as he is able to, have enough expressions to use for these books. So, basically what these read alouds do is they kind of have a moral where the character starts out as basically this label of the bad seed, and then he kind of turns himself around. But I like them because they're just really fun read alouds. Like for this one, I'm a bad seed. A bad seed. I mean, how fun is that? Look at this guy. He's hilarious. So he does start to turn himself around. It's a slow process, but that's okay. And the moral is kind of buried in the humor and is not at all heavy-handed. So these are really fun read-alouds and really enjoyable for, young kids ages 3 to 8 or so. Okie dokie. Now I want to tell you about some Star Wars books, because I am a huge Star Wars fan, and I would be totally remiss if I did not include some Star Wars books for your reading pleasure. And if you have really young kids, you might think that, they're just not there yet, they're not ready for Star Wars, and that actually would be wrong, because they have started coming out with some wonderful Star Wars books for really young children who are really even too young for the movies and the TV shows. So the series I want to share with you today is by Calliope Glass, and it includes Star Wars creatures big and small, so kind of a primer for the different kinds of creatures you find in the Star Wars universe. And then we have Star Wars Obi 1, 2, 3 counting book. We've got Star Wars Search Your Feelings, which is a book about feelings. And we have Star Wars ABC 3PO, which is obviously an alphabet book. So you can definitely satisfy your inner Star Wars nerd while still keeping teaching your kids some of that Star Wars knowledge, such as, that there's 2 suns on Tatooine, 1, 2, 3 Rathtars, 4 metal arms of General Grievous, and so on. So don't make the mistake of thinking you can't introduce some of this fun Star Wars stuff. The illustrations are really cute too, so some of these things that might look scary, they make them look a lot friendlier. Here you go, Corellian hounds. See, even the Corellian hounds are cute. So those are some great ones for fellow nerds like me. Okay, now I'm going to talk about some books for kids who are a little bit older. So this one is great for books, your kids about grades, I'd say 1 through 3, and it is called Little Robot by Ben Hatke. And Ben Hatke is a pretty well-known graphic novelist, and you might know some of his series for kids who are a little bit older, like Zeta the Space Girl and Mighty Jack. But this one is for kids who are a little bit younger, and it's a great book for kids who are just starting to get into graphic novels. Like, it's kind of an introduction to kids who are starting to get interested in them. It has very little text, and it really kind of helps teach the kids how to read the pictures and follow the flow of the pictures to understand the story and what's happening. And on top of that, the story is great. I mean, you can't go wrong with like a lonely little girl and an adorable robot befriending each other. And really great graphic novels for this age group are a little bit harder to come by. There's a ton of awesome graphic novels for kids once they hit around that 4th grade level, 9 or 10 years old, but when they're a little bit younger, there's not as much. So this is a good option for kids who are wanting those graphic novels but aren't quite ready for, Raina Telgemeier and the like. So Little Robot by Ben Hackey. Alrighty, next I have a beginning chapter book called Rabbit and Bear, Rabbit's Bad Habits by Julian Go and Jim Field. And this is actually the first in a series. And it's a good chapter book for kids who are starting to be comfortable reading on their own but aren't ready for novels yet. So to give you an idea, large text, not much text per page, plenty of pictures to help kids understand what's going on and try and fill in those gaps if there's words that they're not familiar with. But it's also very fun to read aloud to your kids who aren't reading yet, as I have discovered reading this to my kids. They thought the story was really fun, even though they're not quite there where they'd be reading this on their own. So you've got 2 characters. You've got Bear, who's real friendly, kind of an optimist, and you've got Rabbit down here, who's really grouchy and friendless. And the story is not groundbreaking, but it's very silly, and it's definitely going to appeal to boys and girls, especially those who like potty humor. Just be warned. There's definitely some of that in here. So what's nice, I think, about this is that it's a little bit different from some of the kind of more formulaic chapter book series that are just churned out constantly and are kind of a dime a dozen. So if you're getting a little bit tired of bringing home, every single Geronimo Stilton, this might be a different option for you that's good. And Neil Gaiman calls it a laugh out loud story. So if Neil Gaiman's opinion means anything to you, that's a good review from him. All right, I want to talk about some nonfiction now. And the first one that I want to talk to you about is a series called Little People, Big Dreams by Isabel Sanchez Vergara. So this is a huge series. There's over 50 books in this series, and they've got for, Maya Angelou, Jane Goodall, Stephen Hawking, Frida Kahlo. These are just some that I just pulled right off the shelf, and they're coming out with more all the time. And the great thing about these is that they read like picture books. So they don't have a ton of text, and they have really colorful, vibrant illustrations that are going to draw kids in. So if you're looking to intersperse some nonfiction into your normal, fiction picture book readings, this is a great series to try. So if you've got kids who are, ages around 4 to 7, and you're just reading picture books all the time, and you want them to learn some nonfiction content, especially biographies, this is a good one. Now, the books don't exclude the difficult parts of these people's lives, such as Maya Angelou was attacked by her mother's boyfriend, but they state them simply, without detail, and very sensitively. And they can also be a really good stepping stone into, reading more advanced and complex biographies. And also what I like about this series is that it has your biography mainstays, like Martin Luther King Jr. and Anne Frank, but it also has biographies of people who are a lot less well known, like Greta Thunberg and Jean-Michel Basquiat and Zaha Hadid. So if you're interested in something, a graphic novel series that is a little more encompassing of all races and cultures, then this is a great one. Little People, Big Dreams. Okay, I've got one more nonfiction series that I want to share with you today. And so there's a million books out there that are going to make you laugh and make you feel good and that you're really going to enjoy reading. But sometimes we also, need books in our lives for things that just aren't so fun. And we need books that are going to help our children process the bad things that happen in their lives. As much as we want to protect them from those things, we just can't always. So it's important to have books that can help them understand. And that is where this series comes in. This series is called Ordinary Terrible Things. And it's written by Anastasia Higginbotham. And it includes books like Divorce is the Worst, Not My Idea, a book about whiteness that addresses racism for young children. Death is Stupid. So, and then also Tell Me About Sex Grandma, which isn't really a terrible thing, but another book for helping you navigate some of those difficult conversations. And I just love the way that Anastasia Higginbotham kind of presents these topics. She's not sentimental about them, and she doesn't gloss over them or fall back on platitudes like, oh, everything's gonna be okay, because sometimes that might be what kids need to hear, but sometimes it's not. And she recognizes that awful things can happen to kids, but that there can be healing. So Not My Idea, which is her newest one, is especially relevant right now because it deals with, whiteness and the racism we see going on today, and how to help kids understand that, white kids understand that. Personally, I hope that you don't need these books in your life, but if you do, it is good to know that they are out there and that there are definitely some good ones. All right, well, that's it for me this time. I'm really happy to be able to share some book talks with you guys, and I hope to be able to do this again sometime soon. Until then, this is Rachel from the Grandview Library, and happy reading.